there, and I've got some questions that you might have some answers for.
Oh, I don't, where'd you get this? I don't think I've seen that.
Ooh.
Looks like it might have come out of the Meyer papers, but I sure don't remember it.
No, actually, I can't tell you. That one, of course, was filled out when we got it, and we wanted to use it in our reenactment division group, so we made a copy of the original that we have, and which probably on the back of it indicates where it came from. But and then we took the white out and made it into a new form again as much as we could. It still has a few bits and dots
Why
on
don't
it.
you keep it in the original form?
Well, we do have it in the original form, but we made a copy of the original, and then whited that one, the second one out, the copy of the one that we received. So we still have the original one. And as a matter of fact, we make that available so that folks know how it was filled out. All of the forms that we have originals that are filled out so folks can, because they weren't filled out exactly the way you would think that they should be. There are tons of things on there. There are, for instance, like the scale glass. I've never seen a scale glass. I've never known where one exists. But it's called a telegraph telescope. And it has the little markings in it so that you can judge distances and so on through the sight piece of the telescope. Now they've got lances, lance sockets, lance heads. Now they may in fact be for the flying telegraph, but in fact, if that were the case, why wouldn't telegraph instruments be on there? Why wouldn't climbing lineman spikes and such be listed on there as well?
Well, this is the 1860. I don't know whether this was Civil War
Well,
or
trust me.
post-Civil War.
Trust me, because I think that's a 62 or 63 form. Our original, as I mentioned, has.
You have one with the date on it.
Oh yes, the first one we got was completely filled out, and so we made a copy of that one, and then took the copy, whited everything out. But we still have the original form. Actually, we don't have we have a copy of the original form.
Right.
We still don't have it. And there's a smaller version of that form as well that was sent to us. Now, I know that one of our associates in Murfreesboro, Kentucky, Robert Raglan, sent us that one. And like I said, it's a sort of short form of that. So if I can see, if someone would be able to give me some more information on that message blank book that we have. By the way, that's yours if you'd like to have it.
Oh, I would.
Oh, good.
I'd also like to have a copy of one that's filled out.
Well, we'll give you that one too.
Okay.
With the data. To answer your question about the telegraph materials, if it was 1862, 1863, the Signal Corps would have been using only the Beardsley. They didn't use any they didn't have to climb any telegraph poles. The Beardsley cable just ran it along the ground.
Well,
And,
yes, they did, except.
And the military telegraph would, but not Signal Corps.
But you see, when you see the picture, and perhaps the picture may even in fact be in here, where they show the two-wheeled ambulance carts that Meyer would have had on his signal groupings. They had the lance poles, they had the wire, they had not only wired spools on mules, on the pack saddles and such, but they also had the little handheld ones. And you've seen that Leslie's illustrated drawing that shows the two fellows running along with carrying this litter that has a spool of wire on it. They show men standing at various intervals with sections of lance poles. You have a top section and a bottom section, and you would jab the.
That was post-Civil War.
I see. Well,
see, the Signal Corps lost all responsibility for telegraphy when Meyer got fired at Sioux Signals in 1863, and the orders were to turn everything over to military telegraph. In 1867, after the Civil War, when Stanton was out of office, then the Signal Corps responsibility for telegraphy
Mhm.
returned to it, and then never relinquished it after that. And so those illustrations where they were running wires on lance poles and so on, and those flying telegraph trains that were along with them were post-Civil War. I don't know how they may have had some hand reels. They must have for the Beardsley. I'm not familiar with it because the Beardsleys had a 7 or 8 mile range. My recollection is about their max. And they, as I say, they used gutta percha covered wire.
Mhm.
But they just ran it along the ground or over fences. But they didn't put it above ground, as far as I know.
By the way, I found that photograph I was telling you about, but before, and that's on the other page. Before you get that, you might want to read that section. What's so interesting about Brown's book? It's very similar to the Bible. Every time you pick it up and you look at it, you said, "I didn't read this last time."
I'm sorry, I lost that picture. Is this it?
Oh, no, it's the picture is actually. Let's see. I think the picture is actually on this page, but and I wanted you to. There was a little text on the preceding page, the bottom paragraph, that talks about more permanent lines, and I think perhaps that's what you were referring to. We've got an article here by John Hoover. It's called The Southern Connection. As you were reading that, John Hoover gave us an article about the folks that were working with Meyer before the war. And he has it footnoted, and you're one of the ones that he footnotes a lot in here. As a matter of fact, very much so. I guess about 15 times. So, oh yeah. So he likes your research. But what I want to say about this particular piece of Southern Connection, which came out of Army Communicator, summer of 1983, is that once Lisa puts this in the cipher, it all goes on to computer disk.
That system was developed when the Civil War got really developed and used when the Civil War got the telegraphy back after the Civil War. I'd have to refresh my memory on those trains. I just don't remember how much
Sure.
if those were used, if at all.
Well, you know what's interesting about them, and you and I may have talked about this on the phone before, but do you think because Meyer wanted it so badly that he knew that wire communication was really a necessity, and he had been promised this by Cameron, the Secretary of War before Stanton, and it was actually put in that he was to have all charge of military communication. Of course, the wire telegraphy was surely, for military means, Meyer could easily claim this to be military communication. But do you think that because he worked with Beardsley to develop the machine and so and the other people, and that he wanted it so bad that he oversold the machine, that he thought anybody who can read and write can operate this machine, and in fact, which may be the case, but it took technicians to keep the machines in synchronism, as you mentioned earlier, and for that reason they got out of synchronism and people would get confused and befuddled or...
Oh, I think he did. It wasn't a good machine.
Mhm.
Because it had all these problems. And its main importance historically, I think, is just clearly that it was, so at least so far as our Army is concerned. As a historian, I'm always very cautious about making great wide claims, taking in everything under the sun. It was the first really tactical telegraph in our Army. That's its importance, but as a machine, it had a lot of problems. And I think Meyer began to recognize that, although one wonders how much is wanting to hook a regular telegraph instrument up to it was simply to improve the machine. It would have, if he had done it, it would have improved tactical telegraphy. That's true.
And it could use the same wire.
But how much but how much that was involved, and how much wanting to raid the military telegraph, it makes you wonder, it was a very unpolitic sort of thing for him to do. Because Stanton was very close to the military telegraph. The office was, the telegraph office was in the War Department building, which stood where the old State War and Navy buildings, 80 offices down.
So we have a photograph.
17th and 17th Pennsylvania. There was for many years across the street from that building, you may know it, on the corner of, I think it's F and 17th Street. That is.
This is the War Department building, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Was there a signal station atop?
No, the signal station was across the street. The building is still there. It was built during the Mexican War in 1848, I think. At the end of the Mexican War, the
Willard's Hotel?
no.
The Winder building?
Winder building, and that signal tower was on top of the Winder building.
And that building is extant, you say?
It's still there,
Ah.
yeah. And I don't know what it's used for now.
DC.
But
In Washington.
I've often thought about how Washington must have looked in the Civil War years with all the numerous employees in the buildings. They must have had to have an awful lot of outhouses outside of them. And I remember just happening by accident. I was reading a congressional document dated in the 1850s sometime, and they were talking about installing inside plumbing in the Winder building. But what I started to say about the Winder building was that at the time of the Civil War centennial in 1960, there was a plaque on the building that said that this is where Lincoln came to read the telegraph messages, which was completely wrong because he would cross the street. And General U.S. Grant, the second or third, I forgot which it was, second I guess it was at that time the chairman of the Civil War Centennial Commission. He later got canned, I think, by President Kennedy because they were having meetings around the country, and at a meeting down in, what the commission was, having a meeting down in South Carolina, they had planned to, and I guess did have a completely segregated, racially segregated meeting. General Grant got canned, and they put somebody else in as chairman of the commission.
I thought you were going to tell me about there was too much
But
alcohol.
anyway, well,
The story goes on.
Grant was an old reactionary from way back, like I think his father was too, in some ways. But anyway, Grant was